Hi and welcome to week 7. I'm going to go all out and try a video capture along with the screencast here to combine vlogging and screencasting. I hope it works for you. Week 7 is dedicated to Wikipedia, and I've got the schedule up here. Pretty straightforward in terms of reading Levinson and responding to him. I've got an additional reading that's more about how to actually write on a wiki, and I'm going to go over that in a little bit. And if you can find the time, there's a lot of great wikis in this particular collection about wiki writing in the college classroom. First thing though that I wanted to recommend for this week is actually trying to come to Wikipedia on a daily basis. This is not something that I do, but one of the themes in Levinson's chapter is that Wikipedia competes to a certain extent with newspapers in terms of in the news over here on the right hand side, for sure, but then it also is just an interesting place of factoids. Today's featured article, Texas Tech University. I don't know if NDSU's ever been featured or not, but it perhaps has. And then a whole bunch of Cliff Clavin kind of factoids down here under the Did You Know and On This Day kinds of features, as well as a fairly interesting photo. I don't know if any of you have taken any psychoanalytic criticism classes or come across that, but I'll leave it at that. So try to work that into your routine a little bit, daily, or at least checking in on Wikipedia multiple times this week to see what's going on and to see what ways, if any, Wikipedia might become part of your social media or internet habits. The focus of the week, though, really is on our own wiki, and I've set that up and linked to it from our schedule. I'm just calling it EC 457 Wiki, a modest and localized guide to new media. And as I've said in the notes in the email, this week is largely about synthesizing what we've covered in weeks 1 to 7 and applying that to writing on a wiki, and so trying to pull together some of our ideas here. Actually, before I spend too much time there, let me drop back quickly to Mike Morgan's essay. This is the one I linked to from the schedule. From wiki writing, and the reason, much like the last one, oops, I guess I shouldn't have done that. I had it bookmarked in there. Let me hop back, do it this way. So there's Mike Morgan. Mike's a colleague at Bemidji State, and he's the one running the class that's similar to ours right now, also reading new media. He's been working on wikis longer than I have and has written about them, theorized them a little bit, and he offers up in this article 3 key terms that we can use and apply to our own wiki writing, and I'll just give you a quick gloss here. I hope you come in and read them, but I also need to adjust them a little bit. So he talks about first the thread mode right here, and how that's going to translate to our own situation is that's going to be the discussion mode. So he's talking about using some wiki software that's different than ours, so we got to adapt those terms to the Wikispace interface, and they have discussion mode, and what you would do in a discussion mode, well, I'll come back to that later. So that's one option and one strategy to think about. Then there's the document mode, and document mode is really writing the text. And I've started to write one here without having gone through the discussion mode or the thread mode, but I wanted to get one at least started in here. And so document mode, as Mike goes on and explains, it is really the prose that you're all pretty familiar with. And then the last wiki strategy is the refactoring. What refactoring has to do with is sort of cleaning up the wiki to a certain extent. You've probably seen on Wikipedia discussion points that ask, should this article be broken into 2 articles? So that's an example of refactoring. Adding some additional comments or requesting clarifications can be considered refactoring. So those are the sorts of cleanup activities that go into refactoring. That might seem like a good enough gloss on what Mike's getting at, but I do really recommend that you read this. It's not a really long article, and I think is well written and informative, so I hope you get to spend some time with that before coming over to our own wiki and spending some time contributing to it. As you can see, what I've set up the home page, and on the right hand side I've set up some possible pages. One of the things that we might want to do is reorganize or relabel those. You can see obviously blogging, microblogging work pretty well. We keep skirting around the issue of mobile media. Maybe somebody like Marie, who's taking that on a little bit more thoroughly in her paper, could take the lead on this particular page. We've also got Web 2.0 and 3.0 as nodes, possible pages, but maybe we'll decide that that's going to get covered through old media and through these, and you might want to throw those out, and you might want to replace those with some of the concepts that you're working on. I could imagine a page on hashtags. I could imagine Dom starting one on trolling. We've also got, I think it's Kelsey, working on things like post secrets and texts from last night. If we can figure out a label or a page where that kind of practice might work there, that would be great. Now, which is not to say that you need to start a page for your essay necessarily, but if you see that as viable, certainly give that a consideration, and then the refactoring process might combine that with other ones, or might handle it in different ways. So what I'm suggesting is that you come in and make at least 3 original posts, which will mean that we'll probably need to create some additional pages, and then edit or refactor 3 items that are already started. I did get one started on old, in parentheses, media, in parentheses, broadcasting variety, which is really awkward. One of the things that you can do with all of these pages is check and see what Wikipedia has done with it, and it actually goes with just mass media as an entry, not a separate entry on old media. That seemed useful. I quoted that at length in here. I tried to draw in this particular entry on Levinson. You can see him cited up here and down here, and that's certainly a recommended strategy. This is about synthesis and pulling together what we've read so far. So think about how you can use Levinson and other sources that we've encountered in this class. Also think about doing a little bit of secondary research for your entry, and so I've added, as I was writing this, I thought, you know what, I wanted to illustrate old media industry, and so here's a link to a little entry on the book industry from 2009. Here's one about the newspaper industry from 2010. So much like Wikipedia, these entries are going to be stronger if they're not just your personal thoughts, if they're supported by secondary sources like Levinson or Wikipedia itself or other sources. And then I've left down here kind of what's often called a stub, strategies for success in old media, because the basic formula I'm giving you is this: what is it, what has it been, so a little history and where it's at now, strategies for successful blogging. That's why this is also what I'm calling it, as you can see, a modest and localized guide to new media, because I'm really, the localizing is really trying to think about not just information about blogging, but for us, what are the successful strategies? Initially I'd envisioned us kind of building this wiki as we went along, but it seemed to me that the pace was pretty demanding in the first few weeks, and so rather than try to fold this in as we were going along, I realized, hey, I'm just going to put this at the end, week 7, use it as a synthesis week, and so I'm hoping this will work for us. So we've discussed some of these things. You might be able to go back to some notes that you've made about blogging, or fairly recently I linked to a story about why students should blog. You might want to go back to that particular page to draw on that as one of your sources and include some of its ideas in here as strategies as well as your own. Call those the rhetorical strategies. There's also what I call the media ecology strategies. That's how to get noticed, and so this mean things like blog from a particular service, WordPress, feed it into Twitter, have Twitter feed into Facebook. Those would be your media ecology strategies. There's also ones about using keywords, tags, hashtags, things like that. That's the sort of tips and strategies that I'm hoping that we'll be able to incorporate and develop within our own local blog. The last thing, I've sort of already covered this, but I wanted to give you a specific example. Really early on, actually before we got to Twitter, Jason posted this 8 helpful resources for Twitter. I'm not sure, there was only my comment on it. I'm not sure if everybody saw this particular post, I think most people were still trying to get their blog up and running, so this would be an example where not only Jason could come to this and draw on it, but anybody in class who was working on microblogging and Twitter might want to come in here and draw on Jason's post as one of the sources as well. But if you've written about any of these things, certainly draw on your blog posts or even your tweets to work with that. I have seeded this one with a discussion point, what counts as microblogging. I thought that was one of the issues that we brought up but never really resolved. His Pinterest, Dig, Reddit, Tumblr, are those good examples of microblogging? Are they something else altogether? Seems to me that the Pinterest people want to define it as more of a pin board and a inspiration chart, or what do they call it, inspiration board, I think. And so they're resisting that. I mentioned the Post Secret. I noticed they refer to themselves as mail art. So an interesting question, what counts as microblogging? And that also gives you a sense of the refactoring that could go on, as maybe we do need separate pages for things that don't fit neatly into blogging, microblogging, mobile media. But that's what I hope will be the interesting process of this week, is sorting those particular things out. And then final note, and I've kind of hinted at this, is of course use this week not only to synthesize what you've done, but to continue to work towards your essay, your chapter on new media. And so you can do that by adding a particular page or contributing to a page, but sort of gearing it to or specializing it around the things that you're interested in, doing some secondary research that can help you with a page on microblogging, and contribute that information to the particular wiki page. Oh, and let me draw your attention to one other thing. I should have taken better notes here. I keep surprising myself. If you come here and you're just not sure where to go, how to get started, I've set up what I'm calling a sandbox page, a What I Know page, and so this might be a good place to also start your wiki experience, because you can also get used to the interface here. And so you can see I'm recommending that you come and put down 5 to 7 items. I've tried to give you example of some of the things that have occurred to me over the course of the first 6 weeks, and just very short notes. Obviously, if I were to take something from the virtual world and bring it into the virtual worlds page, I'm going to need to develop pretty significantly, but at least I got some ideas down and I have a sense of where I want to contribute on our class wiki. So don't feel like you have to come in and jump right immediately into social media or social networking. You could come to What I Know, the sandbox page, and just do some initial brainstorming, some data dumping, and then build from there. Alright, I hope this format works. I hope the screencast gets us off to a good start, and I look forward to an active week 7.